All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Orrick, here with Bob Rose on the special Wednesday night edition. Congratulations to Brendan, who your co-host on the Bayou Blitz is getting married this weekend in the land of the rat. No, I love Disney World, but yeah, he's getting married in Disney World. So congratulations. Well worth the swap tonight. I know it's been 3 days. We kind of talked out about it, but we need to talk about the Saints versus the Falcons. This was a frustrating loss for me. I mean, it really was, because once again, this is a very beatable team that we beat ourselves. And it starts with Rashid Shaheed having a brain fart and trying to field a punt on the 5-yard line up against the sideline. Why? I mean, it's not a kickoff. I mean, what were you thinking when this happened?
I was screaming obscenities. I was screaming obscenities well into the next drive, because, listen, I understand a player as explosive as Shaheed sometimes is given the green light to make plays. When that happens, they'll players like that can roll the dice and take a gamble a little bit. The standard rule of thumb, Alan, as you know, as a punt returner, clear back and Pop Warner, you plant your feet on the 10-yard line, and if the ball is over your head, you let it go. Well, with a player as explosive as Shaheed, that rule is a little bit flexible. But like you said, not only did he field the ball at the 3-yard line, but he did so on the sideline. So even if he did make the catch, he wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere except under the Superdome turf, because he was about to be planted. And who knows? He might not have held on to the football after a hit, either. So that might have resulted in the same. But obviously that put the Saints in an early hole. I wasn't necessarily worried about the 7-0 score itself, because I felt coming into the game that the Saints were just such a vastly superior, talented team, to the Falcons. That as long as you don't spot them a 2 or 3 score lead, 7-0, 7-0, it meant nothing. And to New Orleans' credit, they did bounce back. To Shaheed's credit, he bounced back and had a nice afternoon too. But when you're a team such as the Saints, and I know we'll get into this, when you're a team such as New Orleans that has trouble finishing games, you cannot make mistakes to beat yourself early in the game. And that's one of the couple of mistakes, gigantic mistakes that kept the Falcons in the game. Otherwise, we're talking about a 2 or 3 score advantage for the Saints heading in, midway through the fourth quarter.
And that was one of the things that got me was both touchdowns were really courtesy of Saints mistakes. Not many people talk about this because they just look at Derek Carr throwing an interception, but Flocka failed to chip.
Yeah.
And I know you invite the rush in, but you've got to chip before you take off for this bubble screen. And the pass rusher got a clean rush at Carr. He tried to sidearm it away from him to get it to the screen, but it didn't happen. Ball got batted straight up in the air. The worst thing in the world can happen to a quarterback. And it's a pick six. I mean, it's one of these things that happens, but it's like one more shenanigan, one more thing that goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it was frustrating because you feel like they let a game go.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to next with this. You finally do take the lead. You take a 2-point lead. You make the Falcons use all their timeouts. You go ahead and score your touchdown. There's a minute left. They're going to have to go and kick a field goal. All your defense has to do is make one more stop. You know they're going to throw to the sidelines. Let them catch the ball in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Tackle them. Do not let them get any yards after the catch. Make them waste time. Your pass rush, this is when it matters. And we did none of that.
Nope.
On 2nd and 10, Adebo gives up a 30-yard pass interference play because he allowed their best receiver to get behind him. How do you do that? And people are like, well, that's Dennis Allen, bad coaching. No coach tells a guy to do that.
No.
So,
and and you're not talking about a Tyreek Hill or a Rashid Shaheed type of speedster either. You're talking about a plotter. If I'm not mistaken, that was that to McLeod or was that to Drake London?
I think it was Drake London.
I thought so too.
That's all he had to go to.
Yeah.
That's all he really had. I mean, Kyle Pitts is a non-factor, and if they can't run the football, which they really, except for in the third quarter, they really didn't run the football very effectively. The Saints dominated rushing the football.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Taysom Hill factor too. But the Saints really controlled that game. They just didn't get enough points to overcome a mistake at the end of the game. But you played the end of the game perfectly until your defense gave up a pass interference and let essentially their Morton Anderson, Younghoe Koo, kick a 58-yarder. And I was mad because I'm like, sack the guy.
Yeah.
Make them hold something to get them out of field goal range. Make him kick a 60-plus yard field goal. This is when your pass rush should have come in and made a sack, and it didn't happen. So I blame the defense, and I caught a lot of crap for it on Twitter or X, but I blame the defense. And I was arguing with a guy for 3 days about it because he kept saying, well, the defense held them to 12 points. Yeah, but they lost. And the 12th point, the 10th, 11th, and 12th point were the game, what decided the game. You can't even allow them to score 12 points. We've seen 3 games, I think, this year so far where it's nothing but field goals all the way and winning games. That's not enough. You're giving up points.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot let them get the points. You've got to make the sacks. You've got to bring them down. You need to make a turnover, whatever it takes. I watched that crazy Georgia-Alabama game Saturday night. Same kind of thing, except at the end of that game, they got the interception to close that game out. Otherwise, Georgia is winning that game. So that game, I think Alabama scored 28 points in the first half. I think it was like 33 or 34 to 33 or something ridiculous like that. I mean, so who are you going to blame now? I mean, your defense had to make the play to close out that game. So that's the defense's job. I mean, I think you and I are in agreement on that. Is that your interpretation of this?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you bill yourself as one of the better defensive teams in the league, and personnel wise, you should be. Coaching wise, you should be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're one of the best defenses in the league, you don't give up a lead in the final minute of a ball game. And it's not only happened for 2 straight weeks; it's happened repeatedly during the Dennis Allen era. Not just as head coach, but as defensive coordinator too.
Yeah.
Some people brought up, it might have been you even, brought up examples of the primetime game on the road against the Buccaneers. You blew that one. You blew a late lead against the Bengals. Even a couple games you won. That Seahawks shootout a couple years ago. Your defense almost blew that one.
Yeah.
Buccaneers game and Sean Payton's final year as coach. It just and we can go on and on. Those are just examples off the top of my head.
Minneapolis Miracle.
It's simply stated, great defenses do not give up those plays in the final minute of a game. And especially when you're a team coached and structured like the Saints, who want to win on defense, special teams, and field position. Well, if that's the way you want to win, when the opportunity presents itself, you better damn well win the game, and they aren't doing it.
You know, and this is the nature of having a defensive-minded coach. He wants to win with defense and special teams. Your offense control the clock, score enough points to win, but basically your job is to have a complete victory every week, where the defense has to close out games. And in both cases, we have seen special teams failures in this game, and we saw a defense fail to close the game out. Last week, we talked about the Eagles game, giving up a 3rd and 16. I mean, you cannot do these kind of things and expect to win. And if your idea is, well, you know what you need to do? You need to score more than 24 points. You need to score 30 and 40 points each week. That's fine for Madden, but that's not realistic in the NFL. These guys are getting paid to stop you.
Right. And you don't have the offensive personnel to do that either, because of the way you structured your organization. If you want to win games like that, or you want to take the shackles off of your offense, like the old Air Coryell days, or the Dan Marino Shula days, then you better give your quarterback. Well, first of all, you need a better quarterback, than Carr, to win. Carr's not a guy you win week after week with a shootout. But he certainly needs a hell of a lot more than 2 wide receivers to throw the football to, too. You need better blocking up front. The Saints don't have that, because they didn't structure their team that way. Again, it's because you want to win. You want to close out games with your defense, like you said. Well, then again, when the opportunity presents itself, you better damn well do it.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about, too, is you brought it up. Here, Taysom Hill in the beginning of the game is just tearing the Falcons up. They're so concerned about Taysom Hill that every time he did any kind of motion, anytime he did anything, the Falcons defense shifted to adjust to protect against him. Mm-hmm. And it led some big runs by Alvin Kamara as a result. Then Taysom gets injured. This is not the rib injury he had. I mean, not the bruised lung injury he had. I think it was a rib injury this time.
Yes.
So it goes to your point, because I saw the people on social media wondering, why doesn't Kubiak adjust to the lack of Taysom Hill? Well, what's he supposed to adjust to? Do you see this like I do, that you just don't have the weapons to really just be able to withstand injuries to key players and just keep going like it's nothing?
Absolutely. Not only for the offense in general, but particularly the passing attack. But you knew that Taysom Hill was going to be a key part of this game plan. It was working out very well through the first quarter and a half before he went down with injury. But like you said, what kind of adjustments is Clint supposed to make? It's not just that you don't have the weapons. The other players, the complementary players, you don't trust them either. They don't trust Jamal Williams. And I think that's very obvious when a Kamara who's battered up and banged up with rib injuries is still getting the ball on, in short yardage situations and at the goal line. Mm-hmm. That's why Jamal Williams is supposed to be on this team. So you don't trust him. We'll get into the pass catchers in a minute. You don't trust him, so that allows the defense to focus more on Kamara, which means you can't use him quite as much as a receiver, although I thought they did a nice job of that against Atlanta, which takes away not just one of your weapons in the pass game, but two, because Taysom's on the sideline and you're limited with what you could do with Kamara, because if you line him, bring him out of the backfield, all of a sudden you're telegraphing to the defense what you're going to do. Yeah. The only complaint that I had about Kubiak's game plan after Taysom went out was, okay, you have a banged up offensive line, which I actually thought played, punched well above their weight class. I thought they played very well. But let's look at this logically. You had Landon Young, a converted tackle and career backup playing at guard. And you had a guy who shouldn't even be on a football team right now in Shane Lemieux at center, along with a guy, every fan's favorite whipping boy at right tackle, Trevor Penning. So you have major questions on that side. Lucas Patrick has started every game at left guard. Talise Fuaga has started every game at left tackle. I better knock on wood when I say that. And you've had, Brian Baldinger has come out several times and called this team a left-handed football team now.
Yeah.
It's a left-handed running team, not a left-handed football team. I mean, Carr still rolls out to the right. That's the passing game, though. But anyway, you have the left side of your line intact, yet you repeatedly run to the right side. Why? I know that seems to be Taysom Hill's favorite play and most effective play is the power right. But all year long so far, Kamara has had his best success with the stretch plays, the off-tackle plays, and the pitch plays to the left. You're running that to the right. Why? That's the part I didn't get out of this game plan.
The only thing I can figure is they must have really liked the matchup on the right side. You're running at Caden Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
You're running at, I don't remember who was the left, the right defensive end that was going up against Penning. And you're trying to do the Penning strengths, which is running the, run
Mm-hmm.
blocking. But at the same time, it wasn't working, though. It wasn't getting the success that you wanted to get out of it. And I don't know why they kept doing it as well. Because once they started running, when they did run to the left side, they had very positive yards. They just didn't do it often enough. And I don't understand the decisions behind that either. But let's go on to about the pass catchers too, because people are like, well, then you start throwing the ball. Well, we've already mentioned how we're worried about these offensive linemen holding up, because I think that's what Atlanta was expecting,
Mm-hmm.
was Carr to drop. And a lot of teams are expecting Carr to stand back there and try and throw the ball 30 and 40 times a game. And they're trying not to do that. Where is this passing attack? I mean, Olave had a good game. I've got to give him credit for that, especially because we weren't even sure if he was going to play because of his hamstring. But Shaheed did not have a good game. Shaheed hasn't had a good game 2 weeks in a row. Where's the passing attack supposed to go outside of Chris Olave?
It isn't. And to Shaheed's credit, he did have 8 catches. He just didn't have that big play. That the Saints are counting on. And Olave, you can't ask for a tougher performance. Wide receiver with a hamstring, and he was clearly hobbled. I thought he had a fantastic game. But it's very clear to me, if it's clear to me, it's got to be clear to opponents, that if you can take Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed out of a play, Derek Carr has nowhere to go with the football. And that's a major, major problem. And it was also very apparent of this. And, again, it's on the players. Mason Tipton, complimentary back half of the depth chart player at best. Cedric Wilson, useless. Foster Moreau, a blocker. Jawan Johnson, he's been useless. Bub Means, completely invisible. And A.T. Perry in street clothes on the sidelines. You got nobody. And to that point, all those players combined have, through 4 games, have combined for 5 catches.
Mm-hmm.
That is beyond pathetic.
Yeah.
And I said it on our post-game show. I said, you look throughout the league, and most teams, have their primary 2 and 3 guys that they like to go to. So that part isn't unusual. The difference becomes, and you look at Kansas City, who, half of their wide receiver depth chart is dead.
Mm-hmm.
But the good teams, the Chiefs and the other perennial playoff teams, when their top weapons are contained or injured or both, someone else always steps up to make a play. Name the last time that's happened with the New Orleans Saints. You have to go back several years, even the last couple of years of the Sean Payton era. You can't really think of anybody that's made plays in key moments. And the fourth and goal play is a prime example of that. People will talk about Carr made a poor throw in the corner of the end zone. I don't think he really did. He just had nowhere else to go with the football because the play was to Shaheed. Olave was on the other side being double teamed. He was taken out of the play. Well, lined up in the slot on that play was Juwan Johnson, who ran a slant. And by the way, didn't get enough depth on his slant, which didn't get him to the goal line. So Juwan, for you fans that are saying, Carr should have, shut up, John. I'm in no mood for a Traquan tonight. But a lot of fans were pointing out, pulling up this famous, the infamous still photographs. Juwan was open. You have to let the play. You have to run the video and let the play out. Juwan didn't get enough depth on his route break, and that safety was coming up on him fast. If you throw that football, chances are Juwan's going to get tackled at the 2-yard line. That's A. B, Carr really didn't even look like he glanced that direction. Why? Because he has no trust in Juwan Johnson, Mason Tipton, Cedric Wilson, Bub Means, basically anybody named Olave, Shaheed, or Kamara in the passing game has no trust. That's a big, big, big problem.
Absolutely. And that, of course, is going to lead into the conversation that just shows the desperation that the Saints have. Devonte Adams went to the Raiders because he wanted to play with his college teammate, Derek Carr. He had his best success in Green Bay playing with Aaron Rodgers. So who are the two teams that Devonte Adams is demanding to be traded to? Either the Jets or the Saints. Your thoughts on a potential trade for Devonte Adams? First off, are you for trading for Devonte Adams?
Brendan asked me. That is a good question, and Brendan and I talked about this on last night's show. The Saints need to have if the Saints are interested, and we don't know that they are, but if the Saints are interested, before you make that overture to the Raiders, you have to have an honest conversation behind closed doors. And the honest conversation has to be this: Dennis Allen, Clint Kubiak, Mickey Loomis, do you guys truly believe that you can make a run with Devonte Adams this year? If you believe that, and fans, I know I'm waiting for the chats to pop up. Forget what we all think; it's what they think. If they think that, then you do. You do pursue Adams. If you're honest with with yourself, and you come to the realization, now I think we're still a year or two away, then you're absolutely insane to make this deal, because you're giving up draft capital. At least a second round pick is what we're hearing. The Raiders are asking for starters. You're not getting any younger at the position. Yeah, you get a proven receiver, but you're not getting any younger. And I made this point too. I said, if you bring in a Devonte Adams, you have to be willing to pay him, not just for this year and rework that contract, but again, you have to rework his existing contract and figure out a way to keep him around for at least another year or two beyond this year. The Saints are not good enough to go out and look for a rental player to get them a ring. They just aren't. So if you make the decision to pursue and get Devonte Adams, you have to be willing to pay him. If you're willing to pay him, you're also acknowledging Chris Olave. You are no longer going to be a New Orleans Saint after the 5th year. After we pick up your 5th year option, we're going to let you walk out the door because we can't afford. No team can afford to pay 2 top tier wide receivers. So again, you're sacrificing age at the position as well. Do the Saints need another weapon? Absolutely. And Alan and I just got done talking about that very fact. And Devonte Adams, he would be that Michael Thomas, that Jimmy Graham type of receiver to work the middle of the field. To cause those safeties to pinch in and creep up where you now can hit your deep shots down the field and along the sidelines and even down the seam. On paper, the fit is great. And I'm not worried about, the Saints aren't going to be able to afford him. What team have you been paying attention to? If the Saints wanted him, they would work out the numbers. I'm not worried about that. I wouldn't like the compensation because you're basically doing a soft reboot, as you're so fond of saying, Alan. If you trade for Devonte Adams, you absolutely go against that philosophy because you're not getting younger at the position and you're sacrificing a future draft pick or 2. Again, if you honestly feel like Devonte Adams can help you win a ring now, put you in a legitimate contender position, then you make the deal. If you don't believe that, then you don't even answer the phone if the Raiders call, let alone call them.
To me, it's not about winning a ring right now, but it is about getting back to the playoffs. And if you want to get back into the postseason, I think that you seriously consider what can we do to get a player of Devonte Adams' caliber. I'm with you from the standpoint of he would you don't want to essentially pay a 1-year rental and give up a draft pick for that. If you were to trade a player for him, you say you're going to ship, I don't know, you're going to try and make the decision right now between Paulson Adebo and Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, if you're trading Lattimore, then it's a player for a player. You're sending Lattimore to the Raiders, and you're taking Devonte Adams, and you're basically having something in place that you kind of switch salaries, take the cap hit with it. We'll give you Lattimore and our 6th. I don't think they even have a 6th anymore. In exchange for Adams and your 5th. And we're going to eat the salaries, and go on from there. I just feel like just after this conversation we just had, you need to make a trade like this. You need to find a receiver like a Devonte Adams. You and I, right before we went on air, I said I'd love to get a hold of Mark Andrews from Baltimore because it's clear that they are interested in getting Likely, involved in the game and making Likely the focal point. And Andrews is basically your blocker. You're our Foster Moreau, and Adams is too good for that. He would help out tremendously because now you have a tight end that Carr can trust. Now you have a tight end who can stretch the field, attack the seams, and get those 3rd down conversions. But it's not enough because they also need a running back to show up. Now, Kendre Miller supposedly is coming off of whatever the hell list he's on, temporary IR, is your hamstring okay kind of thing. But Kendre Miller's the guy that has to do what Taysom's been doing, running that short yardage, because clearly Jamal Williams is not. Jamal Williams, I think, in Allen's dream world, Jamal Williams is your closer. When the game is pretty much over with and you're running the football to run the clock out, just like back in 2009 with I just forgot his name.
Mike Bell.
Mike Bell. Thank you. Just like with Mike Bell, in 2009, you bring in a guy with fresh legs. The team is worn out, and now you're pounding this guy at you. You know, I think that's what how he envisioned this working out for him. Anna says she's more worried about paying Alvin Kamara. They're gonna end up having to figure out something with Alvin Kamara, but that's not until the end of the season. And essentially, Alvin's going to play on his deal, and then we'll see what happens. I think the more Alvin plays, the more it's like, yeah, you really need this guy because you don't have anything else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've learned these past 2 weeks that was covered up because we were healthy the first 2 weeks. This team, which most of us knew, is wafer thin. You lose a couple of players to injuries, and the offense looks dramatically different.
Yeah.
And it struggles. So that's why I would be for a trade for Devonte Adams, but there's a lot of other things, like you said, that you'd have to figure out. I'm not willing to give up Chris Olave to pay Devonte Adams. I'm more willing to pay a much lower draft pick for a 1-year rental just to get me back to the playoffs. Because I think getting me back to the playoffs buys Allen more time, which I know I can hear people screaming already. No, we don't want him, no.
But again, it's not what we want. It's what they want, and they clearly want Dennis Allen around.
Yeah. So, you want to buy Allen more time. You want to give this offense a chance to be successful. And not having these guys, and I know somebody said, the Saints passed up an opportunity to draft receivers. They should have drafted receivers. They knew this is what they were going into. With what? You had a first-round pick, but we had to get an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. And a second-round pick, people were screaming in the offseason, this is why you draft 2 offensive linemen with your first 2 picks, not a cornerback. Then you're not picking again to the 5th round. And where's that receiver supposed to come from? We did draft somebody in the 5th round, Bub Means. Right. So that's the kind of receivers you were getting in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. So you also want to keep as many of your draft picks as possible because you're trying to rebuild the youthful core of your team because we're saying the team doesn't have depth.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of – it really is. It's like how you said. They're going to have to sit there and really have a discussion. Does Devonte Adams give you more wins having him on the field? Does he win you the division? Is he going to be the player that makes the difference in this offense from this point forward? It's a tempting conversation to say yes, because look how awful the league is right now.
True.
I mean, honestly, the Washington Commanders are in first place in the NFC East. Mm-hmm. The 49ers and the Rams are beat to hell. And Christian McCaffrey may not play at all this year. The team that we play next week, the Kansas City Chiefs, lost their best receiver, Rice, to an accidental tackle, friendly fire. Mahomes accidentally tore his ACL by running into him.
Yep, and they were already without Hollywood Brown, so.
Mm-hmm. The Cincinnati Bengals are terrible. So it's the conversation is very tempting to sit there and say, yeah, let's get him because we can go pretty far in this battered league. We already beat the shit out of the Cowboys, so they may likely be the number 2 seed.
Yeah, you beat the shit out of the Cowboys. You should have beaten the Eagles. You know what it takes to beat the Eagles. The Minnesota Vikings are a fraud.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions, I think they're 3-1, but they're a real shaky looking 3-1. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, going back to what I said before about chasing a ring. Yeah, I admittedly I overstated it because I mean, yeah, this this roster, while I acknowledge that it has talent, it's not that Drew Brees type of team where okay,
Yeah,
if we get this one piece, we are Super Bowl favorites. It's more or less as you put it. If Adams can help you win the division, that gets you in the race in a relatively decent position. And once you're in it, anything could happen.
yeah, exactly. Um, I agree with you, Hemisphere. They're not one or two players away. They're one or two drafts away.
Yeah.
They really are. It's about getting younger. It's about getting a rebuilding the core, and you're not at that point right now. You're kind of in that limbo land where you're good enough, but not elite. And it's not as it was with the case of Drew Brees, where you're trying to put a core together to make that one last run. They're just not. That's not the team they are. So that's why what Bob was saying was very true. You know, is Devonte Adams the guy that's going to get you a ring? No, he's not. He's the guy that probably puts you in position to win the division, barring your defense doesn't blow leads again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's trade a Lattimore or an Adebo and weaken our defense. To get a guy to boost our offense. That doesn't make any sense either. So I'm not sure I take that deal.
Right. I mean, unless you're playing Madden where you can trade. I'm drawing blanks on people's names right now because I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to say. But number 55, the kid
Foskey,
yeah. Unless Madden, you're trading Foskey to the Raiders for Devonte Adams, and the Raiders, of course, eat the salary too, so you get cheap. Yeah, that's how it works in Madden. Calvin's asking about the Taysom hypothesis. I think the Taysom hypothesis is real. I think the thing about Taysom is he makes the offense go because he can do so many different things for you. And it's the fact that he does this shows you kind of how thin this offense really is because he's supposed to be a gimmick player, and instead he's a guy that has to go out there and do a lot for you.
Yes.
And it's the reality of how thin the offense is because you really don't have the boom, player that can go with the dash of Alvin Kamara. You don't have that power guy. Now, Kendre Miller comes back and plays the way he played against Atlanta the last week of the season. Suddenly now it's a lot better, and we can kind of fake it with two receivers and then just kind of make that third guy somebody we spread the ball around to. But right now, Taysom's the guy because Taysom's the guy who is the mismatch and can move the pile. So I don't, that's how I see it.
Well, and it's not only that, but when Taysom is in the backfield, you have to pay. Yeah, to your point, you have to pay attention to the backfield. You recognize that the backfield is a legitimate threat, so you can move Alvin Kamara around. If Kamara is in the backfield, obviously the backfield is a legitimate threat, so you can move Taysom Hill around. Teams do not respect Jamal Williams. They've seen enough film on Jamal Williams to know that he's not a fit for this offense. Kendre Miller, on the other hand, now Miller has to stay healthy. That's a no-brainer, folks. We know that. We're setting that wild card off to the side right now. But Kendre Miller, the player, I think he's already shown enough, in brief stints as a rookie, to make defenses respect him when he's in the game. Where if he is in the backfield, okay, we have to account for Kendre Miller, so you can move Kamara in motion or into the slot, or you can move Taysom in motion or into the slot. So yeah, I mean the Taysom factor, I agree, is very real, but it's more so a matter of the lack of depth at the skill positions for the Saints than it is Taysom Hill himself.
Yeah, yeah, and Taysom in 2019 almost single-handedly carried that Saints team to a playoff victory. So there is a thing that Taysom does.
Yeah.
But and I've always felt that it seemed to be, especially in those 2017, 2018, 2019, even 2020 seasons, that Taysom was the guy who kind of sparked the offense. He would make a play, and then suddenly now the offense can go, and the offense is doing the things they're supposed to be doing, and it's just like he's the guy that had to kind of get it all kick-started. I I don't know how to describe it other than he's almost like, you ever seen the Far Side cartoon where they got the sheep at a party and they're like going, look at this, so and so's by the punch bowl, and so and so's, and then the door opens, there's a border collie standing. Goes, oh, thank God, someone's going to organize this party. He's the border collie in this land of sheep. I mean, it's just the kind of way it works. He's the guy that kind of gets this thing all going. It's hilarious, but it's true. Because I think about it, the block punt, for example, is a very Taysom Hill type of play against the Eagles because that seemed to get the Eagles going. It's amazing. It really is. Well, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate this. Jerry takes some time to come see us because we're one of 20 different channels. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Jerry. I know there's a lot of people out there who do podcasts, and there's a lot of people out there who have opinions on the Saints, and I hope that we offer something different from them. You're not going to get me drunk on the show. I just don't do that, but I'll leave that to Ralph. He's much better at it than me. Drinking alcohol sent to you by strangers from the internet. Hey, whatever works, man. But I appreciate this. I really do. So let's talk a little bit about the defense too, because we've kind of beat up the Devonte Adams thing, and we still have another week. I'm sure. I doubt a trade is going to happen this week.
Right.
This is going to be one of these things that don't believe really anything until you hear. Man, I'm telling you, it's because it's Wednesday night. I'm not thinking about football. But the little short guy on Fox, the insider,
Glazer.
Yeah, Jay Glazer.
Yeah.
Don't believe anything here Jay Glazer reported because Jay Glazer seems to have the best inside information. Ian Rappaport's the worst. Actually, Jason Looking-For, who I don't think he's even doing it anymore, but he was probably the worst as far as insiders. But Jay Glazer is the guy I always believed, and I trusted his opinions on things.
Mm-hmm.
But defensively, the Saints couldn't get a pass rush with that battered offensive line. Storm Norton was stonewalling people. Storm friggin' Norton. We're talking about the need for the Saints to get a pass catcher. Do we need a pass rusher too?
Probably, but I mean, you're definitely not going to get one of those at this stage.
No.
And what the pass rush was getting penetration and getting some disruption in the first 3 weeks, but they weren't finishing plays, and that's what I was yelling about. That's what I was concerned about. Okay, you got to, especially against Kirk Cousins, who traditionally has looked like a Hall of Famer against Dennis Allen defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to say Kirk played up to that level on Sunday, but he certainly had a far better game than what he should have. They got some disruption on him early on, some hurried throws and things like that. But again, just like on Jalen Hurts the week before, when the game was on the line, the pass rush was absolutely invisible. And I think at the end of the day, I know Peyton Turner, got the only sack of the day, which that tells you how bad how in dire straits your pass rush is.
Yeah.
But I think they only registered 4 quarterback hits on Cousins. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous under normal circumstances. And then, like you said, when you have a second string center and a should be practice squad player in Storm Norton in the starting lineup, and you can't get Kirk Cousins to the ground, that's ridiculous.
And that was a big thing. I watched Storm Norton almost the entire game. Every time he was going against somebody, and he was just stonewalling people.
He was.
They could not get off the block. And Vilma pointed out Granderson. Granderson was the one having trouble with him.
Mm-hmm.
Granderson could not get off that block. Now, I felt, of course, they were holding, but that's neither here nor there. You're only holding if they get caught.
Right.
But, one of the things was driving me crazy was Brian Brzee did not play very much at all in this game.
No.
They really played Nathan Shepard and like I said, I'm having a blank name on number 50 for the Saints.
Yeah, Saunders.
Kalen Saunders. Kalen Saunders played almost the entire game. Now, granted, he was coming back from injury. They felt he was ready, and they were going to let him play. But they weren't getting any push up the middle. I have to give the Falcons credit. Their game plan was get the ball out of Cousins' hands.
Yeah.
Have him sit in the shotgun the entire time. He never took a snap under center the whole game. He stood in the shotgun the whole time. And he got rid of it in less than 2 seconds. So it wasn't like he was back there moving around, looking around, and they just weren't getting to him. He was getting them out of his hands, but there were other parts of the game where he had like hours of pocket protection when nobody was even near him.
Yeah.
And he's scanning the field, making 3 and 4 reads. And I get it. You're not rushing him. You're dropping everybody into coverage, making it harder and harder for him to find somebody to throw to. But somebody needs to get off that block.
Mm-hmm.
And no one did. So, that was driving me crazy because that was inexcusable. You shouldn't have had that kind of game plan. You lost Willie Gay to a broken hand in the first series. You didn't have DeMario Davis. So, you're basically playing with DeMarco Jackson and Pete Werner. And, you're trying to watch for the run so you're not blitzing. But at the end of the game, that's when you started blitzing. You should have been, and I think Alontae Taylor was even out for a period too.
He was.
Because I saw Kool-Aid come out there. But you've got to blitz somebody. You had to blitz him on 3rd and long. You should have been blitzing him in the last 25 seconds of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Send a blitz to knock the ball out of his hand or sack him to get him out of field goal range. None of that happened. It was frustrating as anything. So is it the players? Is it the scheme? What did they, why was the defense bend but don't break against Atlanta?
Because it's both the players and the scheme. I thought for the second straight week that New Orleans tackled very poorly. Tyler Algier went crazy in the third quarter because he was breaking 2, 3, 4 tackles a pop. Between Alontae Taylor and Will Harris taking poor and Jordan Howden taking poor angles. To Tyrann Mathieu making business decisions over and over and freaking over again. I think
he went out with an injury.
Right. Jonathan Vilma said 3 times on the coverage, on the network coverage, that Tyrann Mathieu is such a good tackler. What player have you been watching? There's a lot of good things that Tyrann Mathieu can still do. Tackling is not one of them. And he was never a standout tackler to begin with. But his tenure with the Saints, you might as well give him a bullfighting cape and put Olay on the back of his jersey, because that's the way he approaches a back.
Yeah.
So I fault the players for that part. I fault the scheme for the things like the way the way they covered the way they defended the 3rd and 16 against Philadelphia. For not when you're not getting a pass rush on Cousins, with your front four, for not blitzing. I agree. I realize what you said. You already had DeMario out. You lost Willie Gay early. Those are your best 2 coverage linebackers. So why the hell wouldn't you bring Pete Werner and DeMarco Jackson downhill? I'd be like, okay, guys, Pete Jackson, I know you can't cover worth shit. So I'm just going to say, the old Bill Cowher line when he grabs Greg Lloyd by the face mask, just rush the passer. That's all I want you to do, is just rush the pass. Run into the backfield. Run blitz. You fill those gaps in the center so Algier has nowhere to go. You showed good pursuit because they defended Bijan Robinson as the runner, not so much as a receiver, but as a runner pretty damn well. That's why they started to run Algier, because he's your in between the tackles guy. He's what Jamal Williams should be. That Algier was breaking off those big chunk runs, because he was getting to the second level, Alante, Howden, and Matthew, not making the stop. Well, again, how do you defend that? I'm bringing Pete Werner and DeMarco Jackson right up the gut. If that forces Algier to bounce it outside, so be it. But I'm going to feel pretty confident, that my athletic defensive ends and Granderson and Chase Young are going to chase down those plays.
And I felt the secondary just didn't play very well at all.
Not at all. Lattimore had a nice game. That was it.
Yeah, well, they didn't throw at Lattimore. I think Lattimore's reputation discouraged him more than the actual play of Lattimore, because Lattimore is coming off of an injury.
Yeah.
And here, you're not even throwing his direction to see how healthy he is. You're running everything at Adebo, and Adebo got the interception. I give him that. But Adebo really didn't have a very strong game. He struggled a lot.
For the second straight week.
Yeah.
He's every fan's defensive whipping boy right now. Trade Adebo, cut Adebo, bench Adebo. Adebo's still a pretty solid cornerback. He's in a slump right now, though. And he's got to play his way out of it, because whoever is playing opposite Marshawn Lattimore is going to get tested a lot. Yeah. And Adebo has made a couple plays. He's not making enough. You're especially in this day and age of the NFL, you're going to give up plays or you're going to get flags. That's just the nature of the game. You as Paulson Adebo or whoever the player is, you have to make quarterbacks pay for testing you, and he's not doing it enough. As far as Lattimore goes, the Falcons were falconing. Kyle Pitts had 0 receptions and just 3 targets, because whenever they lined Pitts out wide or in the slot, that's who they put Lattimore on. And to your point, they didn't even look his direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Falcons did have this game at a point where they were giving it away. And we just didn't get it because we made the mistakes. And that's what was frustrating. Falcons Twitter is fun to read during a game because they're as bad as the Saints, because the Saints Twitter, because they're like, oh, we're going to lose. He's going to miss this field goal. He's going to shank this field goal. This is what they do, that kind of thing. So, and I did appreciate, and I even retweeted Falcoholic saying that I want to crack my teeth every time I see Taysom Hill out there. He's going to run. He's going to run. No one can stop him. So that's where I'm going right now with this. So Dennis Allen makes the choice here for the second week in a row to pass on a field goal and goes for it on 4th down with all the things we just talked about. No Taysom Hill, so your short yardage back has to be Alvin Kamara because you don't trust Jamal Williams. Mm-hmm. I understand the logic behind doing this because it's tied into this clock management. How did you feel when it happened, though?
Um, I was okay with it. If I'm on the sidelines, that's not the call I make. And I like the aggressiveness, and I said that the week before against Philadelphia too. I like the aggressiveness then. And I like the aggressive mindset. But I tell you, here's why I wouldn't have made that call if it were me on the sidelines. You just lost 2 or 3 yards on a Kamara right side run. That would have clinched it for me. Losing yardage on that play, I would have trotted out Blake and then hope my defense got a stop. Because now you're talking 4th and goal from the 7. If Kamara even would have gotten stuck for no gain, and you're talking 4th and goal at like the 4.5 yard line, I probably do go for it. But 3 yards when you're inside the 10 is like a mile.
Yeah.
So it's not the call I would have made, but I understood the mentality and I understood the approach. You have the confidence in your defense. And the people that were saying, take the points because you would have won the game. Guaranteed you would have won the game. Well, again, going back to the Saints defense, what everything we just got done saying about that. If you kick the field goal in that position, then you obviously kick off to the Falcons. Falcons get the ball, barring a penalty. Falcons get the ball. Falcons get the ball at the 25, 30 yard line. Even if you stop them for a 3 and out, you don't have the field position that you did on that touchdown drive. You're now happen to go 75, 80, maybe 85 yards. So that changes a lot of things. So that's why I understood it. With Allen's mentality of even if we don't get it, if we can hold the Falcons to a 3 and out, we get good field position, and that is ultimately what happened. The plan actually played out for not getting a touchdown. The backup, the plan B worked out perfectly for Dennis Allen. You didn't get the touchdown, but you got the 3 and out. You got the field position. You got the touchdown, and you milked as much clock as you could while doing it. So plan B worked out perfectly.
Yeah, you made him use all their timeouts. And this is what Calvin didn't see. But on 1st down and 2nd down, inside the 2, they did a quarterback sneak. Now, the first time, he did try to do the Drew Brees thing where it jumps up, but he didn't really put the ball out there, which was good. He didn't do that. Yeah. But, he tried the jumping over the pile like Drew did. 2nd down, they ran a quarterback sneak again, and this time he turned his back and kind of lunged into it that way. The good thing you did by doing that is you ran plays that ran clock. And unlike taking a knee and losing the yardage by taking a knee, you try to inch forward. So you're inching the ball closer to your point about the mile. So you're burning as much clock as you possibly can. You've made the Falcons use all their timeouts. So you're running clock. You get to a minute and you score on 3rd down. Now, in retrospect, you're probably going, they probably should have run a quarterback sneak one more time. But then you're going and putting all the marbles on one play in the 4th down, and Kamara's going to get the yard. Now I can hear Vince Lombardi, if you can't get a yard, you don't deserve to win the game.
Well, and that's why I like the 4th down call the week before against Philadelphia.
Yeah. So, you do everything right, because now that the Falcons have a minute to go to get in, unfortunately, into field goal range. And this is the part that made me say, man, we should have just taken the points, because I would have liked to have been, this is why I didn't like the 2-point conversion last week, but I would have liked to have kicked the field goal, then get the touchdown. So now I'm up, 5? Do my math. Yeah, I'm up 5. Now they have to score a touchdown. They haven't scored a touchdown all game. There's a difference between getting in field goal range and bending, don't breaking
Right.
around the goal line.
Right.
And I like the Saints defense against the Falcons offense in the red zone. So that was the bad part about the decision. That's why there's so many people go back and relive it going, you should have taken the points, because against the Eagles, yeah, I would have taken the points because the way that game was going, no one was scoring touchdowns. Not until the end, but no one was scoring touchdowns. So I'm taking the points because I'd rather win 6-0 than lose, 6-3. So I get it. But in this game, because it worked, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I can accept the logic behind it. Your defense just has to finish the game. So where do they go from here? You're playing Kansas City Monday night. First injury report doesn't come until tomorrow. I don't know who's even going to be back from Monday night. Demario Davis, maybe.
I think there's a good bet, Davis. I would be surprised to see Davis miss 2 straight games.
Yeah. Does Tyrann Mathieu come back for his homecoming against the Chiefs? Is Cesar Ruiz back for this week? Is Taysom Hill back? I mean, that's a lot of it. And the Chiefs don't like the Super Chiefs right now. They look like a very vulnerable team that's winning on bullshit. I mean, for lack of a better term, they are. They're winning on bullshit plays. I don't even know how to forecast this game. I really don't.
Sure you do, but you're making me come out and say it. Because when you play the Chiefs, you not only have to play Patrick Mahomes, you not only have to play Andy Reid, you have to play the referees, and that's at home or on the road. And now you're going into their place on a Monday night in front of you.
Will be there.
Yep. So that your deck is stacked against you for sure.
Yeah. And of course, the Saints will win because of that. You realize that, because you don't win the games that you're supposed to win.
Right.
You win the game you're supposed to lose.
The fact that Dennis Allen is 4-14 against teams that are 500 or better when the Saints have faced them tells you all you need to know. Again, and many of those 13-14 losses, they've had opportunities to win in the second half, and we've talked about it all night why they haven't done it. Injury list is going to be long for sure. And like I said, I expect Demario back. The names I'm going to be watching, Cesar Ruiz, because you got to deal with Chris Jones in the center. And it's bad enough you got Shane Lemieux at center. And Landon Young is a serviceable player. But I don't want a serviceable player going up against Chris Jones. Not that Cesar Ruiz is going to make a Pro Bowl anytime soon, but at least that's an established starter. Cesar is a better run blocker than Landon Young is, in case Clint Kubiak loses his friggin' mind again and goes right-handed running attack. But they're going to have to get cute on offense. And by cute, I don't mean like a lot of razzle dazzle. I mean, using Shaheed in different ways on jet sweeps and ends arounds. Using Carr a lot on rollouts because you don't want him hanging back in the pocket with Jones and Karlaftis coming off of the edge. I look for Kansas City to take a page out of Raheem Morris's book and play some too high safety to not let Shaheed or Olave beat them over the top. Let the Saints earn the field position, by 10 and 12 play drives. Basically daring New Orleans, saying we don't think you can do it. So the Saints are going to have to answer that by finishing those drives. By keeping themselves in second and manageable and third and short. So, it's going to be a challenge to Clint Kubiak against Steve Spagnuolo, who, except for that 1 year aberration in New Orleans, has been a fantastic defensive coordinator. It's going to be a real. It's going to be a real chess match, a fun chess match to watch between Andy Reid, an offensive guy, and Dennis Allen, the defensive guy, and then Spagnuolo and Kubiak. I expect it to be a physical game because people don't realize how physical the Kansas City Chiefs are. They won this Super Bowl not. I say all the time that Tampa Bay won their Brady Super Bowl in spite of Brady because of defense and running game. It's not that Patrick Mahomes has been bad, but Kansas City has not been winning solely because of Patrick Mahomes. It's been more defense and referees. So I mean, you can't turn the ball over, and you have to figure out a way what did Sean Payton always say when he'd go up against a Peyton Manning or an explosive quarterback? You got to steal a possession or two.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do, especially on the road, and you have to do it early against Kansas City.
And they don't have Pacheco either, so their running game is very, very weak. So there's really no excuse the Saints can't get off the blocks and really make plays in rushing the passer or just getting to Mahomes, because Mahomes does stay in the backfield a lot more than he did early in his career. I don't know if A.T. Perry's going to play this week. I don't know what the story is on Perry. He must really suck in practice. That's all I can say. He is deep in not just Allen's doghouse and Kubiak's doghouse too. I don't know, but they're gonna have to figure out something with A.T. Perry. A.T. Perry is the opposite of Traquan Smith. The fans love A.T. Perry, and the coaches can't stand him for whatever reason. Traquan Smith, the coaches loved him, but the fans hated him. It's just I don't know how to explain it other than that. But yeah, this is probably because of Dallas Goedert, this is probably the game that Kelsey takes off, and you'll see Taylor Swift about 1,000 times on television because this is the game where he starts making plays again. I don't know how this game's going to play out. I had this game penciled as a loss since the schedule came out. You're playing Monday night in Kansas City. The Saints are beat up. They have no right to win this game. But, of course, they probably will because this is the kind of game they would win. I think it's going to be close, even though it's in Kansas City. I think there's going to be bullshit galore.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's Kansas City and they've been getting away with bullshit all season. So, it's going to be, can this offense play well enough to overcome the bullshit? And I don't know if they can. If we were healthy, we had McCoy and we had Ruiz out there together, I'd say, yeah, they probably could play well enough to overcome the bullshit. But I don't know. And I want to see if Kendre Miller gets activated this week. I think I hate to hype this kid up, but he's really the X factor.
Yeah.
Because if he plays the way he's capable of playing, then, and I hate to say you're counting on an injured player coming up and making a difference, but he's a guy that they don't have much film on. He's a guy they're not going to know much about him. So he's the guy who's going to surprise them by running the ball well. If he can do it. I don't know if he can do it. I don't feel that way. So I would like to, if they're going to win a game, I'm going to say Kendre Miller is going to have a monster game and the fans just going to lose their minds because it happens.
Right. I would be surprised to see Kendre Miller activated in time for this. His practice window opens tomorrow. And I made fun of it a little bit. I'm like, I'm like, what the hell is it? He must have the worst hamstring injury in the history of hamstring injuries, because he got hurt on the first day of training camp, didn't see the field again, and hasn't seen the field since.
Right.
That we're going on 10 weeks of rest. Yeah, my God, this man better be a superhero when he comes back.
Right.
But again, I don't think it's going to be this week. I think it's going to be the hands on deck that we have seen. But I agree with you. I think that there is enough talent there, coaching included, where the Saints can manufacture some points. But it's not going to be enough to overcome the bullshit. It's not going to be enough to overcome Mahomes and Reed in the long run. I think it's going to be a close one too. At least final score. But just like you, as soon as the schedule came out, I'm like, okay, this is a lot. I've never wavered on that. I'm like, I can't see him going into Kansas City and winning.
Yeah, I have more confidence they'll beat Tampa next week than I do them beating Kansas City this week. Just because divisional game, you're going up against a team that you know well. You know what they like to do. You know where they like to go with the ball. And it's throughout the records. These are the two teams that battle it out.
Yeah.
Atlanta's our rival, but the divisional games, the tough divisional games, are really against Tampa.
Yeah.
So that's just the nature of the thing. And this week also starts the 3 games in 10 days, because it starts with Monday night's game. Then you play Sunday at Tampa. No, you play Sunday at home against Tampa. Then you play Thursday at home against Denver, who somehow beat the Jets in a monsoon 10-9. We're going to talk about Denver when we get to Thursday, but Bo Nix had -7 passing yards, and they still won the game. So,
hey, don't look now, but Sean Payton's put together a pretty damn good defense in Denver, and that's why they're in games. That's why they've won a couple in a row.
Yeah. And I really think the monsoon helped him.
Sure.
So, we'll see how Denver looks this week. But in the meantime, Bob, I know you don't have the Bayou Blitz because you had it yesterday, but you still have a show that y'all do during the game and in halftime, correct?
Not this week.
That's true, because he's getting married.
Yeah. I don't think Brendan's wife to be Katie would be real happy with him. He would get his marriage started off on the wrong foot. Our pregame and postgame shows are going to be non-existent for Kansas City, and barring something weird, we won't be having a Bayou Blitz next week either. I'm still going to do my articles, my preview articles, my analysis articles, and all that stuff. Watch for that on my personal pages in the Saints News Network. But no Bayou Blitz.
I would just put her on the Guardians ride and tell her to do the fast pass. So, you're going to have to still go through the line and stuff, waiting for the ride. That should take about as much time as halftime on a Monday night.
Right.
Just do it straight from Epcot, live from Epcot. Here we go. Let's talk about the Saints. And then, is she out yet? Yeah. I got to go right now. So.
Yep. I've done shows from the beach in Ocean City, Maryland. So why not?
I wrote a paper from the beach. I literally did this on Ronald Reagan. It was a presidential class, presidential style leadership class I took in college. And I literally, the day we were leaving to go to Panama City or Destin, I think we were going to Destin that year. I checked out, I needed 10 sources. I checked out 10 books, and there's pictures of me on the beach at spring break with those books on my lap, and I'm marking paper now and sticking it in there. And the joke was the professor never actually read your papers. He just kind of gave you a grade, what he thought based on how you did. And then when he not only did he read my paper, he read part of my paper out loud to the rest of the class, because I told Reagan jokes and stuff like that, that I found in the story. He loved them. He really did. I'll tell the one he loved. I'll tell this one real quick. He said, Reagan told a story about how government works. And he says, there's a man, no one knows what he does for a living. All he does all day is initial papers and push them on to the next department. One day a paper comes across his desk he wasn't supposed to initial. He initialed it anyway and sent it along. 2 days later, the paper comes back with a sticky note. You weren't supposed to initial this. Erase your initials, circle the erasure, and initial the erasure, and send it on. Dr. Zettner was the man's name. Dr. Zettner said, if that doesn't summarize government in action for you, I don't know what does. So he loved that story, and I'll never forget it, because when he started, he says, as he read the paper, he didn't say whose paper it was. I'm like, oh my God, that's my paper. I wrote on the beach. So anyway, that's my spring break, one of my many spring break stories. So anyway, Bob, I'm glad you stuck with me tonight. Thank you for being out here. I know it's been a long week for you. Look at it this way. Sunday's going to be pretty relaxing because there's no Saints game. It's Monday night. So we'll do the Monday night. We'll talk about it again next Tuesday night, the night after, and go from there. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us on the special night. We'll see you next week. Regular, same bat time, same bat channel. And Brandon, good luck to you. Congratulations to you and your wife. Have fun at Disney World. And we'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.